Pfizer makes all of our cheese? If you spend any time on social media and you follow any number of food influencers or truthers or based people or whatever, you've probably seen a lot of posts in the last week or two about Pfizer making 90% of our cheese. And I thought, well, that doesn't sound right. So, me being me, I spent a lot of time actually researching this and figuring it out so that I could spend a little bit of time today to tell you the truth behind this wild claim. So let's dig into it. So before we get deep into the nuts and bolts of what this really is and how Pfizer plays into this and all of that, first we got to understand what is actually going on here. What are the fundamentals around this enzyme and cheese production and all that? So here's the long and the short of it. Cheese has been made for thousands of years. And it's always just been, I think, milk, salt, and rennet. And rennet comes from baby calves, and it is basically an enzyme that comes from baby calves. And those calves, unfortunately, need to die for us to get the rennet. And what rennet does is it takes the milk and it curdles it. So it takes it from a liquid to a solid. And that's how you get cheese out of milk. So now that we understand the basics of cheese making, let's dive into Pfizer and everything around this wild claim that people are making. So rennet has kind of a bottleneck, and it basically is the death of calves. So when veal was very popular, there was an excess of rennet. And around the same time, and let's call this the second half of the 20th century, cheese became more popular, specifically in America, but really everywhere. Cheese became super popular. So demand rose for it. And at the same time, veal started becoming out of fashion. I mean, at this point, the only place you can ever get veal is like a real Italian restaurant because that's an old dish that old timers like. So in the 80s, there was an increased demand, but there was a bottleneck in production. And so Pfizer, being the company that they created an enzyme. So for a little bit of context, at that time, Pfizer was just inventing a lot of different stuff. They were just doing all sorts of things. Not everything that they do is evil and like trying to take over the world. They at that time were just another company like any other. And so they were, throwing shit onto the wall and see what sticks. So I think there was some sort of, capitalistic, but maybe even altruistic reason for them to create what is called FPC. And so FPC is an enzyme that mimics the chymosin enzyme that comes from cows. And that is rennet. So it mimics rennet without having to slaughter baby cows. So FPC stands for fermentation produced chymosin. It is lab created. It's made by inserting rennet or a cow chymosin gene into a microorganism like a fungi or a bacteria. So yes, it is a genetically modified organism, but that GMO actually produces a pure chymosin. And the microorganisms are filtered out, meaning the GMO microorganisms. They're filtered out. And the final product is literally just chymosin. So there's no GMO in the final product that's then used to make cheese. In essence, they are functionally the same. Now, I'm sure some of you, or even many of you, are just like blanket against GMOs. And I mean, I'm with you, man. I just want natural food. I want real food. I don't want fake food. So I'm with you, right? But science is also science. And at the end of the day, according to hundreds, if not thousands of studies that have been done over the last, let's say, 40 years about rennet and chymosin and FPC, all of the studies say that it is safe. There have actually been zero health incidences that have ever been attributed to the use of FPC. And that's over the course of about 35 years. For some people, that's not good enough. Say, how do you know the long term effects if it's only existed for 35 years? Fair. A lot of the scientists and doctors say, hey, this has been widely adopted over the last 35 years and we've had zero incidents. And I think that's also fair. So, at the end of the day, both contain the exact same chymosin enzyme. They have the same chemical structure, the same molecular function. Both cleave kappa casein protein in milk the same way, meaning it curdles the milk the same way. Both produce identical cheese results. So now that we have that out of the way, and again, you choose what makes sense to you. We here at Buyer are not here to tell you what to think or what to feel or what to deem healthy. That's not our thing. Our thing is to just tell you the facts as we know them. We report those to you. You filter those facts through your experiences, your morals, your ethics, and then you decide what's best for you. So if you just don't want to trust that science and you're really not into GMOs and you're like, yeah, Kev, like I hear you, but I don't really care. That's your prerogative. And we're here for you. At least you know the facts before you make that decision. And if it's the other way for you, then also great. A lot of what's going around, and you'll see in posts like this and like this or this, is that there is a great misunderstanding or misconception about Pfizer's role in cheese production in the United States. Largely, people are taking this information, which, by the way, is not new information. This has been widely reported on for over 30 years. Even influencers have been talking about this for years, but for some reason, over the last couple of weeks, maybe some posts went viral. I don't really know. But this has been a huge talking point, and people keep saying something that's just inaccurate, that Pfizer manufactures 90% of the cheese in the United States. It's taking some true statements and presenting them in an untrue way. So here's the reality. Pfizer in the 80s spent a few years developing FPC. Sometime in mid 1990, they got approval from the FDA. So in the first half of 1990, 0% of the manufacturers use FPC. 0% because it wasn't available. So Pfizer starts putting this out. By the end of that year, about 5% of cheese production used FPC. It started getting adopted. Now, because there was an increased demand, and now there was a new avenue for cheese producers to produce more cheese in a safer and cheaper way, production just went through the roof. By 1996, about 30% of cheese production was using FPC. Now, in 1996, Pfizer still owned the patents and the rights and everything to FPC. But then in 1996, they sold it and they wiped their hands of this and they sold it to C.H.R. Hansen. And again, about 30% of cheese production at that time was using FPC. So after 1996, Pfizer had nothing to do with cheese production. In fact, Pfizer doesn't make cheese. It never did. It's an enzyme that's used in the production of cheese by all sorts of cheese manufacturers, some of which have been around for 200 years. Go look it up. So between 1996 and 2025, which is when the most recent estimates have come out, we're looking at a 90% use of FPC in cheese manufacturing in the United States. Now, since 1996, when Pfizer sold it to CHR Hansen, it has changed hands a couple of times. And now the company that owns it is sitting there and they're selling this to 90% of the makers. But at no time did Pfizer actually make cheese. They don't produce cheese, they produce drugs, they produce vaccines. They don't produce our cheese. Okay. So just want to dispel that myth because I understand that if you want views, you want things, Pfizer, cheese. I mean, it's like Pfizer, everybody hates Pfizer. Cheese, everybody loves cheese. I'm going to marry those two together and get it in the most clickbaity way. And this is what's happening. But it's just objectively not true that Pfizer makes our cheese. So when I saw that and I saw how just salacious that was, I, of course, was hooked just like all of you, just like everybody else on the internet who's sharing this. But I just wanted to take it that step further and really understand it. And that's why I'm making this video today. So here are the verifiable facts. This is what we do know. This is what's documented. Okay. And some of this we've already discussed, but let's go over the facts. Pfizer did develop FPC in the 1980s. The FDA did approve Pfizer's FPC in 1990. They brought it to market and then sold it in 1996 to CHR Hansen. As of 2025, under new ownership, 90% of US cheese manufacturing uses Pfizer's original FPC. FPC is made using a GMO microorganism that is chemically identical to calf rennet, which again is the natural enzyme produced by calves that's always been used in cheese production. We do know that FPC has been used for 35 years in our food system with quite literally zero documented cases of health issues or illness or anything like that. Now, this is the other fact that we haven't talked about that is very important and I think is the real argument to this case. Labels rarely say that FPC or GMO derived bioengineered products are used in the manufacturing of this product. That, I think, is the big issue. I think that that is what people really are up in arms about. And that is super fair. So at the end of the day, the skeptics, the transparency advocates, what they really care about is the fact that there is no labeling requirements to disclose that there's bioengineered ingredients or FPC or GMO derived ingredients, any of that. So, what the transparency advocates and the skeptics, they all really just want truth in labeling, right? They want to see that FPC is used. They want to see that bioengineered ingredients are in the manufacturing of this product. And that's super fair. That's super fair. We should know. We should know everything that's in our food. We should know the effects of everything that are in our food. I am with all of you. If that's what you care about, we're with you. And that's what Buyer really is about. We're here to give you the information that isn't on the label. So we really are right at the forefront of what can only be viewed as the labeling war. And if you haven't seen, we actually did some investigation about 2 months ago on AFIT, AFIT, Americans for Ingredient Transparency, which is actually an advocacy group created by all of the mega corporations because the long and the short of it is they want to really muddy up the labeling laws in all of the states so that they can come in and manipulate us more on the label and in every way possible. This butts right up to that because truth in labeling is a very important issue. And we have a right to know what we're buying. We have a right to know. But also, just keep in mind that not everything in our food system is for some nefarious reason. Like, I actually think that Pfizer was just trying to have another revenue stream that was objectively good by way of not requiring cows to be murdered. They were doing cutting edge science at the time. And I think in this case, it kind of makes sense, especially if there's no GMO organisms left at the end of the things. Like, I'm not ingesting actual GMO. I'm still I'm still ingesting rennet. Now I'm no molecular biologist. I'm no scientist of any type, but to me it makes sense. But please don't crucify me if doesn't make sense to you because, well, again, I'm not a scientist at all. But I think it is important to have the discussion around labeling. Now, the science side, well, really, they just say that FPC is proven to be safe. It's been used for decades. It's identical in every way to rennet. You really can't look at a molecule and tell the difference. They'll hang on, the FDA has approved it and it has been widely adopted and we're all good. And of course, they'll lean on the vegan vegetarian stance of, it doesn't require any death, things of that nature. Those are all, I think, pretty valid stances to make anyway. I don't think that scientists necessarily are just trying to enslave us with food. I mean, I think in some instances, potentially, but here, I really don't see anything nefarious. So at the end of the day, I think all that really matters is that we should be working towards truth in labeling so that we can understand exactly what we are buying, what is in the food that we're giving the people we love most. And I think that that's really all that matters. If you're okay with the GMO, you're okay with the scientists, and you feel safe eating cheese because cheese is awesome, go right ahead. If you don't want to have cheese anymore because you just don't like the idea of GMOs and you're just anti GMO, and that's like also fine. Like, go do your thing. I just want to make sure that you have the information so you can make an educated decision instead of just relying on your gut. And I think that's something we should all do. And what's really interesting is that this morning I had a discussion with Ian before making this video. And he told me something fascinating. He had said that in all of the aisles in the grocery store, in all the grocery stores that he's gone scanning in and, doing his old TikTok content and really diving into the ownership of all the brands that he came across, what he had said was that the cheese aisle had always been the most diverse in ownership. Meaning, yeah, you may have some megacorps there, but there's a lot of cooperatives and employee owned companies, founder and family owned companies. And I thought that's fascinating. So I actually went to the grocery store before making this video to test it out myself. And I sat in the cheese aisle for about 45 minutes, just scanning company after company, item after item. And as you can see right here, it's true. There's a lot of cooperatives, there's a lot of employee owned companies, there's a lot of farms involved in the cheese making of our country. And I think that when the fear mongering hits, in this case, and you want to just eliminate cheese. Now, if you want to eliminate cheese for your own dietary reasons, for sure. But if you want to eliminate cheese because you saw some influencer make a post about how Pfizer makes our cheese, just know that you're actually in some way potentially hurting the types of businesses that we really love to see, which are the family owned, the founder owned, the people who have rejected big money, the people who give ownership of their companies to their employees or work as a cooperative with other farms. And I think that of all the aisles, it's interesting that all of a sudden we're getting all of this content that's giving you fear of going to that aisle. So you have to question that too. or at least you should. Now, this isn't some advertisement for Buyer, though we're always promoting Buyer, and Buyer is a great way to get a lot of this type of information in your hands at the point of purchase. But really, I just want you to have the right information. However, we can give it to you. If we can give it to you in app, if we can give it to you here on YouTube or on Instagram or X or Discord or TikTok, any of these platforms, we just want to get this information out to you and we want to meet you where you're at. But if you want the information in your hand when you're at the grocery store and you have 2, 3, 10 options in front of you and you don't know which to get, Buyer's here for you. It's absolutely free. It's on Apple and Google. It's 100% free. There is a premium tier for those who want extra features, but all the essential functions are free. And you should go over there. You should go check it out because it's free. And it might just help you make a better decision because one of the foundational important things in our lives are food, our body, our mind. It's all made up of what we ingest physically, mentally, all of it. And so if you can find the right things that work for you, that's what Buyer's for. It's to help you find the things that is right for you, whatever that may be. So go check it out. And if you like it, please give us a 5-star rating because that would be huge. That helps us immensely. Because you got to remember, we are not a big company. We're 3 people and we are not backed by any big money interest. This is our money. This is our effort. This is our time, 100%. And so every time you share Buyer with other people, every time you give us a good rating or interact with our content or any of it, you're really helping us and you're helping us help small businesses in the best ways that we can. So please like, subscribe, you know the deal.